Alright guys, here we go. It is a return to Norris, and as is always the case, I'm sitting here looking for keeper fish and struggling to find the right color, the right species. Seems to always play out this way. I love the place. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite lakes to go fish. There is a huge amount of fish in this lake. There is tons of smallmouth, tons of largemouth, tons of spots, great quality all the way across that board. But it always seems like I'm sitting here playing the devil, trying to get on an accurate pattern or a good bite where I am catching keeper fish. And what I'm trying to do anymore is I'm hunting those green fish. I'm trying to find the largemouth or find the spots so that I can make it a little bit easier on myself to try to get a limit. The abundance of smallmouth is definitely there, but the problem is you're constantly battling through tons and tons of numbers trying to get to an 18-incher, and that's the struggle here. So in this one, the game plan for Snyder and myself was to go to a completely different part of the lake and spend our time focused in on trying to find a good quality bite with greenfish, largemouth, and spots. So instead of heading down towards Cove Creek and spending our time down there around the dam, which we did go visit that a little bit later on in the day, we ran to Cedar Creek up here, and we spent our time in Cedar Creek basically the whole day, and then went and checked a couple things. And starting out, we were slinging some A-rigs, throwing some Kitex, and that finesse swim bait seemed to be a very, very big deal for us to get consistent bites. We then changed up into a little bit of a Ned rig, some jerk bait, but it was these steeper banks that we found some stuff on first. But here in just a minute, you're going to see us. I lost that one there, which was a good quality fish, pulled off. I catch another one here on the Kitech. But here in just a second, we're going to jump over to a little bit of a flatter style bank, and there's going to be some river rock, and it's going to be moving into a little cut that just kind of dead ends with a drain that comes into the back of it. We started to get on a little bit of a pattern here with some laydowns and these fish working into these little cuts. So they were moving in here. You could kind of tell they were staging up for that spawn. Some warm weather was coming. The water was kind of rising. But we start to get on a little pattern here that you're going to see on the entrance to this cut and then on the exit of this cut with a jerkbait.
That would be pretty bad. What? Oh no.
So at the entrance and exit of these cuts, these little drains, these little ditches, we started to find a really consistent bite with these fish. Just they were a little bit stacked up, and I was feeling pretty good because we had found some greenfish in these areas, and we had planned on starting right here where I picked up that bite, and then Snyder catches one on a jerkbait as well. But when we get here on tournament day, there's somebody already there, and they're working the area, so we have to move on and move to kind of a secondary area and didn't get to fish this. But this gives us a little bit of that confidence of putting those puzzle pieces together. I'm starting to look in the entrance way to these little cuts here where there's a little bit of broken rock or some laydowns. They were holding on that stuff very closely as they were staging up.
Keep mine. Leave him up here and let's see. Yeah, he'll definitely the time we stop here, we stop.
So you see here again that we've actually just jumped across the lake where you got some sunlight, some good light on this. And again, those banks in this early springtime where you're getting some good sunlight, you've got some great rock that sun's gonna move across that sky and be beating on this bank all day long. Those are great banks in the early part of the year. And same deal, moving into that cut and come back out of that cut, we're getting bit. We're finding bites. We're getting bit on a lot of different things. You see a spinnerbait here, but it really seemed like here on day one in practice, it was that Ned rig and it was that jerkbait that were the big players for us. So again, entryway to these cuts, fish staging up, going into spawn, definitely a pre-spawn bite here, 1st of April. But a little bit of a cold front rolling through. You can see all the wind here and how the clouds are kind of moving out. So starting to put some things together that we like for the next day. It's just going to come down to execution and finding the right bites. Again, going through all of these smaller fish, these non-keeper smallmouth that have to be 18 inches instead of 14 inches or 15 inches with the largemouth, was starting to play on us. Now, here towards the end of the day, I wanted to kind of go and check on the area because I like Cove Creek a lot. I really like the area. Have confidence in it. I know there's a huge population of fish in that creek. So we go down here and we start just picking up spots and getting bit. And that was very important to kind of help me get that area out of my head because it was so hard to get a keeper bite out of it. So it kind of helped me focus in on that Cedar Creek area up the lake. But at the very end of the day, we pull back into one of the best cuts right here, and I'm throwing a Kitech just right up the drain, right up the center of the gut. And as I'm doing that, I catch the biggest fish we've had all day long on that Kitech. So then it solidifies the pattern, but it's like now I've kind of got an area up the lake and an area down the lake, and I've kind of spread myself out. And that's something I'm gonna have to work on, is kind of keying in an area more to where we can focus more on fishing and spending the majority of our time fishing instead of running around all over the place. But this was a fish that kind of solidified that idea of they're staging up in the drains or on the edges of these cuts going back in. Found a lot of bait in this area here, but again, this is our best fish to kind of wrap up practice here on the Kitech. So good way to end the day. So again, as we start the actual tournament day here, it's a little bit calmer than what we had the day before, but we pick up jerk baits, and this is the mouth marina up there in Cedar Creek, and there was a boat that was heading in front of us, so we didn't go all the way into that first cut where we had caught some really good fish on the left. We stopped there on that flat and got a couple bites, picked up one keeper largemouth, but then the other one was a non-keeper spot. We then jumped back across the lake over here where we had caught some fish out of the cut, where it had some sun beating down on it. And we catch several fish on the Ned rig going down through here, but never do pick up a keeper bite in this section where we caught a couple keepers the day before. Now you can see here while the wind was calm and had a lot of sun, we really kind of started out just slow after that first morning, that early morning flurry with the jerk bait. But slinging the Ned rig, throwing the Kitech, we just really went through a bunch of numbers. And here in this is that heartbreaker. This is that situation with the smallmouth that kills you. I get bit and then kind of kill the bait, start reeling again. It comes back and gets it, and it's a very nice smallmouth, probably pushing 2 3/4, close to 3 pounds. But when you finally get it in the boat and put it on the ruler, comes up about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch short. It pains you to throw those back. So that's kind of that's that game that I'm stuck in here on Norris, that I'm going to continue to try to figure out with these once a year trips down there for a tournament, and hopefully put a little bit better game plan together on some more consistent largemouth and stuff, get a little bit further up in the river or further up in these creeks, just kind of learn to weed through those and keep my head in the game, even when you have these tough moments where you're throwing back 2 3/4 fish on this lake. So as the day went on, again, we finally got some cloud cover towards the end, and the wind picked back up. You can see here we haven't quite got to that point yet, but we moved back on that flat where we saw some fish that morning and caught some on a jerk bait. I catch another non-keeper on a Kitech that but as we're sitting here, there's some guys coming into this cut on up the bank there, and they catch one on a spinnerbait out of a tree. And when I see that, the wind's starting to pick up, me and Snyder make the move, and we shift and we head over to a bank where there's several laydowns. The wind's pushing through there really good, and I pick up a jerk bait, and we start to catch some fish and catch some keeper spots. Unfortunately, it's just too little too late. We ended up with 3 keepers on the day, and we let those fish go because we knew that wasn't really going to be anything in contention. We weren't fishing all 5, so we weren't trying to be sitting in any great position with the points. But it did feel good to kind of put a little something together there towards the end of the day, even though it wasn't a ton. We still kind of bounced around and relocated some things and found some things that would work to put some keepers in the boat. Just got to build on that going into next year. Norris is on the schedule again for the Morristown Marines. It's a little bit later in April, so it's going to play different. I think it's like April 22nd. So it's going to definitely be a spawn bite. It's going to be a bite where green pumpkin worm, something light, spinner baits around these trees, jerk bait still, but those fish are going to be fully in that spawn mode. They're going to be pushing up shallow, pushing up there really hard. Should be a really, really fun time. Maybe some of those smallmouth will be a little bit longer, but I'm sure I'll break my heart several more times as I reel in a quality smallmouth that doesn't keep. We're going to keep plugging away at it, keep figuring out some different things down there, keep looking at some new areas, just learning more about that lake as we go. Again, that's one of the fun things that I enjoy about fishing some of these trails that take us to lakes we don't get to fish a lot, is you're always learning from them and stuff. So guys, as I always say, keep moving, keep looking at new areas, learn as much as you can about that lake. But one thing I have learned is I'm going to have to settle in some areas and not try to spread myself so thin. You might want to learn a lot about the lake, but when it comes down to tournament day and really diving in on those practices, you hone in on an area somewhere you can spend your time fishing, and really focus in on that one key creek or that one key stretch of lake, because when you run around, these days go by so fast that it's just crazy. So hope y'all have enjoyed this one. Again, jerkbait played a major part for us, looking for some wind, looking for those laydowns to catch those pre-spawners, and again, those cuts, going into those cuts or in those drains, guys, was key for us. But we'll see you on the next one.
Here's my 3rd acorn. I'm gonna have to give mine a talk.